Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leather Supply, and this is the Leather Element. If you've got a good question for us or a good idea for a leather element, drop it in the comment box below. Also, if you want to know when our video is released, just click your notifications. You'll know exactly when these come out. So speaking of comments, we've got a great request for a video from Robin. Let's make a thread or lace rack. These are great. Keeps the thread out of our way, out of bins, boxes, puts it on the wall, it's organized, and it takes up virtually no space. Now, another good point to this. I always say one of the best non-leather tools we can have in our shop, it's a jigsaw, and we're going to see exactly why. So, for those of us who are leather workers and not woodworkers, we're going to make a nice thread rack, and we can always get creative with this. So let's take some scrap lumber. Yeah, about $6 worth of lumber. Let's make a nice thread rack. We would typically go to a digital pick of our pattern at this point, but there's no real need. We just need one measurement. We can make these as long or as short or as wide or as thin, depending on our space or how many spools of thread or lace we want to put on this. So let's start here. Simple piece of scrap, 1x4. I just happen to have this in my shop. 2x4 will work, or we can go to the hardware store, get a very nice piece of lumber. On our dowels, these are 3/8 of an inch. And again, at any hardware store, relatively expensive. Okay, so for the measurements here, the distance between our dowels, if we're going to go with the larger spools of thread, I would say let's go 3 inches. Those aren't that wide. But when we jump over to our lace, let's go with a 4-inch spread. Now for me, I typically keep 6 larger spools on my rack, just the 3 basic colors and typically 2 weights. Now on our dowel, let's go 6 inches long. So when we drop this in our board, it's going to be about 5.5 inches. That's more than enough for all of this. That'll hold 1 spool of the thread and 2 of the lace. Now, one great point. Let's put these at an angle because I am bad about this. Say I've got my spool on there. I only need 2 feet. So instead of trying to take that off and pull it, I'm just going to pull 2 feet out. Well, if it's at an angle, it's not an issue. But if that dowel is straight across, that spool is going to shoot off of that dowel and it's going to roll across the floor through the dirt. Yeah, let's put a little angle on this. That will take care of that problem. Oh, and also too, yeah, the standard piece of thread, because I'm not going to throw anything away. All right, so let's step over to our main table, draw out a pattern. We're going to keep this simple. We're just going to do a nice easy round in, much like we would do a strap-in punch. But we can get creative with these. Right here, this is the same jigsaw we're going to use to cut, but also something that would look good is if we scallop this around the spools, that would look nice. We can turn this into a nice piece of furniture with just a little creativity. All right, so let's start right here. Up here at the top, I would like a nail hole in both ends. I'd like to screw these, mount these to the wall. We don't have to. This will easily hang on one nail. So let's do this. Let's come in 1 inch. Now, a 1x4 isn't a 1x4. It's 3/4 by 3.5. So let's 3.5. Half of that is 1.75. So let's make a mark there at 1 inch in. Okay, that's our nail hole. So from there, let's come down, give this 2 inches to our first dowel. Now, let's give these 4-inch spread. Now, I'm going to go with 6 because I typically keep 6 larger spools. So let's just mark at 4 inches, increments of 4. And we've got 6. Okay, let's come out 2 inches for our nail hole or screw hole. Good. And now, just 1 inch from the end. And there we are. All right, that's our piece. So now, to make our round in, all kinds of ways we could go, all kinds of templates. Do we have a larger can of just about anything, our S18 or our deglazer? Let's come in just a hair. Let's do our best to even that out. Good. Let's just draw that in. There we are. I'm going to do the same thing to the other end. And we've got that now. Our woodworkers are probably cringing at that. Anyway, all right, so that's ready to go. On our dowels, we're going to cut these at 6 inches. So let's just take one. These are 36 inches long. So let's mark at 6-inch increments. And our last mark Okay, let's take these two pieces over to our pattern table, cut some wood. We're leather workers and not woodworkers, so we need to take extra time to make sure we're being as safe as we can, and we'll do that. Now, a jigsaw, if you're not familiar with this, the blade simply moves up and down. It does the sawing for us. Now, as power tools go, relatively tame, but we do need to be careful with this. Secondly, though, very affordable, and I think this is one of the best non-leather tools in our shop because we can make so many things, particularly pouch molds and forms, and also thread racks. But also, too, let's go with our safety glasses. Now, on our C-clamps, another big help in our shop. So what I'd like to do, let's C-clamp this down, not once, but twice, just to make sure this doesn't wag on us. And I want to come out maybe 8-9 inches. Okay, we've got that clamp down, and we know that is secure and sturdy. We're not going to have any accidents here. So now, with our jigsaw, let's just do our best to stay on our ink line. Well, that's not perfect, but that's not too bad at all. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing to the other end. Okay, well that doesn't look too bad. Let's reset. Cut our dowel. We've got our dowel set in. Now that's going to take a little extra time for 2 clamps each cut. But again, let's take our time and be safe here. So let's cut 6 inches. We have got 6 of those. So let's step over to the drill press in my shop. But one big point, we don't have to have a drill press. And we'll talk about how we can do this with a hand drill. It's not an issue, but a drill press, another big help in our shop. I use this all the time. So on our 2 end marks, we're going to just go with a nail hole or a screw hole there. Go with any bit you want, but I'm going to go with a 3/16 inch for either end. Okay, so we've got that. Now with most drill presses, this plate will turn. I've got a nut under here that allows us to turn. I'm going to set this at 15 degrees. Just somewhere in there is all we need. Good, we're ready to drill at an angle. So right here, 3/8 of an inch drill bit. I'm simply using the bit that's going to match the diameter of the dowels I bought. Not an uncommon size. If we get a box typically that's got a variety of drill bits, 3/8 is going to be in there. So I've got my deck slanted to 15 degrees, and I've got a piece of scrap wood behind this so that I can drill through this piece, get a good clean hole. Well, it's as easy as that. Okay, I'm going to do that 5 more times. Well, we are almost done here. Let's step back over to our cutting table. And one more suggestion for a non-leather working tool in our shop, a good shop vac. I'm covered in sawdust already. So on our dowels, these do not have to come in at an angle. It's just a nice touch. But if we're dealing with a hand drill, what I would suggest, well, first off, good piece of scrap wood behind this so we don't drill into our table. But instead of trying to drill at an angle, let's lift this up. Now we can drill as best we can straight up and down. If 1 or 2 of their dowels are off a little bit, nobody's ever going to notice that. But that's going to make it easier. But always, let's be safe with our hand tools. So on our dowels, let's start right here on one end. I'm just going to use some sandpaper, and let's just take off part of that hard top edge. There we go. All kinds of ways we can sand these, but again, I just want to take off that hard edge and one end only. And that's all we really need. That looks good. So I guess at some point I could take this label off. Wow, easier said than done. They do not want those to come off. Okay, so on this end, they typically mark dowels with a color. Let's flip that around to the other end. There we go, and that's not too bad and looks pretty good. Okay, so let's knock our dowels in. And really, we can go with either side. If we go from this side, this is up. If we go from this side, this is up. But this side's pretty rough. So let's come in here, make sure our sanded end is out. Well, there we are. We've got a nice thread rack, easy to do. Now, we could add glue in these, but those are in there pretty well. One last point. That looks good, could always look better. What I understand from our woodworking cousins, our leather dye makes a beautiful wood stain. A simple, effective project for our shop. This is going to be a big help. Well, how about fit? So in our larger spools, just right. And on our lace, same situation, big help. Now, for our leather workers that dabble in woodworking, make something beautiful with that. But also, too, we're going to talk about that dye as a stain. We'll come back around to that, but I hope this is good information for you. Thanks for taking time to watch The Leather Element. Good luck with your projects.